Hello, and you're listening to FPcast, the podcast for Fruitless Pursuits, where we bullshit about the week in pop culture. I am Luke.
And I'm Jacinta.
And this week we're talking about...
Movies, television, collectibles, video games, comics, books, board games, and more.
You're tearing me apart, Lisa.
Tinkety Tonk. Tinkety Tonk.
I think Tinkety Tonk is definitely in the running to replace Camelot.
I think so. I think maybe...
Camelot's been there for like nearly a year, I think.
Maybe it's run its course. Not many people are talking about Jackie anymore.
No.
And maybe...
It's a surprisingly good film, but still not on people's lips as much, if it ever was, to be fair.
But Tinkety Tonk is a fun word from Goodbye Christopher Robin, which is one of the two films that we'll be reviewing today. Actually reviewing two films which are about the creative process. Sort of about how things came about and the effect they had on the people that created them.
Absolutely, yes.
Disaster Artist and Goodbye Christopher Robin.
Yes.
So look out for both of those, which we'll be going into in some detail. Plus a little bit of news, particularly some news that affects people here in Perth. And also, I'm going to be talking about that Infinity War trailer. Because,
yeah, you might have heard of that.
That was the thing that happened apparently.
Yeah.
So, without any further
adieu,
shall we get into this local news? Oz Comic Con. Now, one of the two big conventions that travels around Australia every year, usually happens in March?
Yep.
Something that we've worked with Oz Comic Con to cover things and have attended every year. I enjoyed that. It's one of the things on the pop culture calendar. They haven't announced... They've announced that they're not going to come to Perth or Adelaide anymore.
Yeah, and they've said that, they love us and they love coming here. And
some of the best fans in Australia.
And some of the best fans in Australia.
Sexiest fans.
But also...
thoughtful fans.
Also, fuck you, though.
We're reading that directly from the press release. So this is interesting because obviously they're a business and they've got to run a business. And I feel like you'd be nuts to think that this was anything other than financial. But that's not the thing that they've come out and said.
Yeah,
and I think that's what's rubbing people the wrong way. Yeah,
they've come out and said that they weren't able to deliver a product as good as they would like to.
And they haven't for the last couple of years, weren't they suggesting?
Yeah,
the guests haven't met their high standards.
Yeah, and the guests haven't been that good, and I imagine that their numbers have been lower. And I mean, it's pleasant for us as convention punters because the floors are less crowded, but I can't imagine that does much for their bottom line.
Yeah, man, they didn't offer to refund us for the less than stellar experiences we've paid for in the last couple of years. But a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
It was a Facebook post, a lot of responses, a lot of negative responses from people in Perth and Adelaide primarily, I would assume, but also people supporting. It's just crazy town. Like, I'm disappointed too. But then I appreciate the fact that it's a business. And what has struck me about a lot of the responses, and I imagine they are emotional responses, and they're probably from a lot of younger people as well, that they're not really thinking about the actual mechanics of doing something like this. You mentioned the guests. Perth always has this thing where they're like, oh, you've got like Hemsworth in Sydney, but you're not going to bring him to Perth, as though they're like, no, you can't go to Perth, Chris Hemsworth, you stay there. And of course, the reality is a lot of stars probably don't want to come over. It's another week out of their schedule. They have to come over here, travel over here, and they don't want to do that. And then the ones that do decide to do it are usually smaller stars that don't have a lot to lose. And there's not enough people in Perth that are going to pay $60, $45 to get an autograph of some third stringer on a TV show that not everybody's watched. And that's why they sit there on their phones throughout the whole convention. So I imagine that there's a real difficulty there in trying to make that work.
Yeah, and it is tough for them. I mean, I've always liked the vibe of Oz Comic Con, and they have, even though they tend to not have any really big guests that I really like I can't remember the last time I was really excited about anybody that Oz Comic Con announced. They have interesting guests that then make me want to investigate that franchise or whatever. Like last year they had Rollo from Vikings, and seeing his panel was the reason I started watching Vikings.
It's great, I agree, but then there's that issue of if he doesn't have a steady flow of people the whole time.
Exactly, yeah.
I assume that they arrive based on a percentage cut basis on the autographs. So if they're sitting there doing nothing, they think, do I need to spend a week in Perth?
Yeah.
Like, I've got not that many weeks a year to make my stuff work. Do I want to spend a week of it in Perth? Yeah. Like, I think that's tough. Whereas, when you get Hemsworth or someone in Sydney, I imagine that aligned with an opportunity where he was in Sydney at the time or working in that area or doing something and was able to just come in for a couple of hours or whatever it was, do it, and then get out again. Which is the same when I saw Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in Melbourne. They were only there for about 6 hours, but they just came in and then left. It wasn't like they were committing to a 2-week tour.
Yeah, well, Hemsworth lives in Byron or somewhere now, so he's not kind of that far away. But yeah. And even wasn't Wenham only there one of the days or something?
Yeah, see, I don't know. Like, they need that flexibility, I guess. And we're seeing a lot of problems and, I guess, resentment from them essentially overselling what they can achieve. Like, there's a lot of guests with both cons, Supernova being the other one, where they say, oh, this person's coming, and then they inevitably, especially if it's someone big, pull out before it happens and never get really replaced. I mean, fuck, it's crazy to think we supposedly nearly had Gal Gadot.
We never had Gal Gadot.
Last
that was
year.
insane. No.
Yeah.
As soon as that was announced, that was, she is going to fucking cancel. So big. But the funny thing is the cons have grown and grown over the last however many years, probably nearly 10 years for Supernova. And just our expectations of what they need to deliver to us have also raised. I remember the first Supernova I went to, it was one day, I'm pretty sure, and the biggest star that they had was Carl Urban. And at that point, he had only been Eomer.
Yeah.
And he was the biggest star. And everyone was like, oh my God, Carl Urban's here. This is unbelievable. And he was in this tiny little theatre at the showgrounds. And, there was a line of about 50 people. And everyone was like, oh my God, there's so many people here to see Carl Urban. And it was like, it seems like a world away from what we expect now.
Yeah, and I imagine there are some sort of changes because there's that expectation of who's going to be there, like you said. And, there are guests that I think that works for very well, but there's only so much money circulating around the convention. And you'll see there'll be a certain person, like when Billy Piper came, where they've got a consistent line the entire weekend. And then there'll be, but 95% of the celebrities will be sitting there doing nothing. So it's like, how do you make that work? And then I feel like you've got a lot of people that are upset about this because it's a social thing for them. It's a cosplay thing. They invest a lot of time and money into making cosplay and stuff throughout the year. But then when they turn up at the con, they don't necessarily spend
the money.
Hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
Which also hurts the retailers there. And then it's expensive to get a stall.
Yeah, I was speaking to one of the girls this year and saying that Supernova has just jacked up their prices so much, and I can't imagine that Supernova would have any incentive now to keep their prices reasonable because now they've got the monopoly.
And for an Artist Alley or somewhere like that, it's very hard to turn a profit, I think, because of your startup costs
for sure.
mixed with your own printing and production costs.
And so many of those Artist Alley artists are, unless you're doing like Sherlock fan art or some Attack on Titan fan art or something, you're not going to be going through a lot of product in the weekend, especially if you're doing original comics or, anything like that.
No, there's no market for that at all anymore.
No.
And it's crazy as well because you could spend 6 months of your life doing a 25, 30-page comic, which and then sell it for like $8 or $10, or you can sell for $15 or $20 an A4 print of Benedict Cumberbatch that you did in a night.
Yeah.
So it's just like the economics don't work for that. Funny too, because the majority of complaints I'm seeing as these people vent their displeasure is, but I can't afford to go to Melbourne or whatever, or I can't afford to do this, or I can't, I've been saving up all, and all of this sort of stuff. And it's like, that's also part of the problem. There's just not that money flowing through. You guys saying, bring this thing that you're having trouble affording here so that all us poor people could not spend money at it. Like, isn't an incentive either. And then, like, I saw there was this guy on there pointing out, you talked about attendance numbers. The Perth attendance was higher than Brisbane.
Yeah.
But by 2,000. But it costs a fuckload more to take this thing to Perth.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you got to think about all those sorts of things as well. And I think when people are having an emotional reaction, they don't weigh it up. And the thing is, if they're losing money, it could potentially all come crashing down at some point. And if you keep putting on an event which isn't working financially, then you risk everything, I guess. So.
And you think about the extra things they would have to do for bringing the guests to Perth and Adelaide. Like, you bring a guest to Melbourne or Sydney, you just go, okay, well, you're in Melbourne and Sydney, go and fucking have fun on your own. Here, they take them on tours, and they take them to Rottnest, and they take them to the Swan Valley, and in Adelaide they would take them to the Barossa, and they would have to spend all that extra money keeping their people entertained for the days before or after the convention, and that's probably a lot more money than we would, think about.
So I'm disappointed, and they're dead to me, but I'll live as well.
Yeah, I mean, Oz Comic Con's only been going for, 5 or 6 years? Like, it hasn't been going that long, and it will be disappointing to only have one con, but...
It'll be more special.
It'll be more special. And Supernova tends to have the better guests anyway.
Yeah, it does.
Really, so, whatever. And they didn't say we're never, ever coming back ever again. They said that we're not coming back next year, and then, maybe they'll reassess. But I don't see them coming back. Really, like, financially, I just don't see it. Happening for them.
But we're seeing everything change, aren't we? Like, I think it's very difficult for any sort of, like, pop culture store or comic store or anything, because you're talking about such a widespread lot of interest now. Like, I feel like I know a lot about pop culture, know a lot about collectibles, but I wouldn't know what the fuck to stock if I was doing that sort of store, because, there's
every time you walk into a shop and think, oh yeah, that'd be popular, there's mountains of it sitting on the shelf. And
you look at one thing and you go, okay, there's probably like one person in Perth that really wants to spend $300 on that statue, and it's like, will that person ever walk in and have you know what I mean? It's so hard to match things up. So you're seeing those, like, one of our biggest collectible stores ended up folding, and we went into the sort of final one, or we lost 2 really, because there was that one that was in the mall as well.
Oh yeah.
And then that one that's kind of hanging around that we went to yesterday really feels to me like it's on fumes. And I mean, I used to be able to go, like, they just don't have new stuff because they buy so much stock that never sold, and then 3 years later you're looking at all the old stuff. And I can't imagine anyone that's not doing that sort of turnover like pop culture is, when they come over and can afford to do deals and discounts and things like that. I can't imagine anyone else is really making a profit. I imagine they make a fuckload on those.
Yeah, did you see on Facebook that new outlet that Pop Culture opened this weekend?
The gallery.
The Collector's Gallery. Yeah, it's a huge, big, like, museum sort of thing where they have their life-size statues and they're really, really high-end shit, like, displayed really well. And it's in fucking Geelong. Like, even if you go to Melbourne, you're not going to drive to Geelong to go to Pop Culture, but anyway.
Anyway, that's all that stuff. I thought it was worth commenting on, because we normally do cover that con, and I guess we won't be in the future unless they get someone super cool. And then I love Melbourne. I would be happy to go to Melbourne for a trip. Yeah,
it does. Pretty expensive to go to Melbourne, though.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to go for just the weekend. I have done that before. I've gone to Supernova to Melbourne just for the weekend, and it's too quick.
Yeah, I went to Adelaide for 24 hours for a concert, and that was not pleasant. Adelaide was very nice, but the experience of that quick turnaround was...
Very charitable of you. So, yeah.
They have the big balls in the mall.
They do. They have 2 great big old balls in the mall. 2 big jingle janglers, which were great around Christmas time, actually, seeing those things. All right, one other bit of news, and I guess this is international pop culture news, but concerns somebody from around these parts, and that's bloody Thwaites.
Oh, our boy Thwaites.
Our boy Thwaites. Brendan Thwaites. Saw him in, he was in Pirates of the Caribbean at some point, wasn't he?
Yep, and he was Gods of Egypt.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. I forgot about that.
That was on TV the other month, and I watched it again, and I loved it, and I'm sorry, but I did.
Still loved it. So Thwaites is in the TV show Titans, about the Teen Titans,
Yep.
and this is the first character shot we've seen for this show, and he's rocking Robin.
He's rocking Robin.
Rocking the Robin costume, which is not that dissimilar to, I feel like, what Chris O'Donnell wore in Batman Forever / Batman and Robin.
Oh, I feel like the colour scheme is a little bit more muted
Yeah.
than Chris O'Donnell's, but looking at that picture, like if you just looked at that picture, you wouldn't go, oh, that's Thwaites. I don't think it really looks like him.
Oh, I do.
Yeah?
I can see Mr.
Okay.
Waits in there. You're being confused by the little domino mask. You're like, who's this?
I know, if he takes it off, it's like, oh my god.
God, that's
yeah,
Thwaites
yeah.
under there.
Yeah.
But isn't that great? Bloody Australian Robin. Because, I mean, you got to admit, when you're getting to play a superhero in the grand scheme of things, Robin's kind of the short straw.
Oh, there's probably worse than Robin.
Not much worse. He's the white straw, short straw. White male short straw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only minorities, women, and super pets.
Super pets. Yeah, anyway. I was looking at Book Depository for Christmas gifts, and there was like an encyclopedia of the super pets, and I was like, holy shit, who is that for?
But, yeah, Thwaites, he's going to be like, look out, crime. I'm going to kick you in the bum. Bloody crime. You bloody crime dickheads. Looking at you, Captain Cold. I'm going to give you a punch in the gonads, dickhead.
Shut up, crime. Did you ever, what was that movie? Wasn't that movie with Rainn Wilson? Was it Rainn
Super.
Wilson? Super.
With Ellen Page.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Nathan Fillion as like the Jesus superhero. Yeah. Hated that movie.
Did you? I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
But that's James Gunn. He wrote Guardians of the Galaxy. He can do anything. He's a genius.
You're right.
Remember? Yeah.
Nathan Fillion can't do anything wrong either.
No. No, I loved him in Percy Jackson.
I kind of did love him in Percy Jackson, but I yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, so there you go.
Thwaites.
Good on you, Thwaites.
Yeah.
What a cracker. Infinity War. Trailer pops out.
Yeah. It popped out a bit early, actually. It was meant to be coming out the day after.
I was hoping that we were going to get to see basically that leaked Comic-Con footage properly, because that looked quite interesting to me. And I know there are some same shots in this thing, but that started with Thor landing on the Milano, and I thought that was a really good vibe to get things in. But no, they were clearly going for something more sort of epic and serious in tone, and more about... It feels to be about the culmination. Look at what we've done, look at what we've achieved, look at all these characters, look at us bringing it all together. Remember how you first felt about Iron Man and Spider-Man and all these things, and Thor, and look at where we are. And
Actually, maybe not Thor. Maybe forget Thor and think about the other ones a bit more.
And they're going to be tested.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you could feel that was the way they were going to go, because they did that teaser thing, which was people reacting to past trailers, and this idea of this shared sort of experience, and how we were all going to be like, oh my God, at the screen, and cry, and jump over the couch, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Did you do any of those things when you watched it?
I did not know.
No, I didn't either. And I imagine that this, often they'll do this. There's the thematic trailer. I think they did that with Civil War, didn't they? Like the first trailers were really quite serious and sort of epic and straight-faced, and this is about issues and the stakes are high. And then the latter trailers were like, but there's jokes, you guys, there's quips. these characters, they can't help but have a little bit of a chuckle at each other. Guffaw. And I'm sure that'll happen this time around as well. What are your thoughts then on this snippet?
Oh, I think at this point with all the Marvel stuff, it's just that feeling of seeing those characters that you love again, really. And that was what I was, you're just sitting there. I didn't give a shit what they were actually doing in that trailer. I just wanted to see Cap, and I wanted to see Bucky, and I wanted to see Ant-Man, but that didn't fucking happen. And then I want to see Hawkeye, and that didn't happen either. And so it's just kind of ticking off those people you want to see. And I got to the end of the trailer and went, oh yeah, that was quite cool. And then I messaged you, and then I watched it again and went, oh yeah, that was quite cool. But I'm not like fucking crying over it or anything. It was fine. It was a fine trailer. I liked seeing my dudes, and yeah, that's about it.
I'm very interested in the current iterations of them. Like, What's their hair like? How have their weapons changed?
There's a lot of hair things happening
Yeah.
in this Infinity Wars. Like I remember that first promo stuff came out with like Captain America with the beard and he's looked all great. I kind of didn't really feel anything.
You didn't?
Not really, no, which is surprising because I expected to.
Well,
And yeah, I think I was still just thrown off by Black Widow's hair because that was a jarring sort of thing.
it's the eyebrows.
Yeah, and I think it's also like when her hair was like, red, it looked just so healthy and luscious and glossy. And like ScarJo's blonde normally, so seeing her blonde is not like a shock to the system. But like, I don't know, her hair just looked unhealthy. It looked crispy, and I didn't like it.
I don't know if I felt that, but I feel like blonde eyebrows are almost like having no eyebrows.
It's a bit
she had
albino.
A bit powder.
Yeah.
A little bit like behind the scenes, Paul Bettany's going to be like, this takes me back to the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of struggle with that because there's been some promo shots of her or like publicity, promotional art that I think she looks fantastic. But yeah, the eyebrows are weird. That was throwing me off a bit. She seems to have a Darth Maul weapon thing happening as well. We don't see it in the trailer, but in that promotional stuff, she's got like a big long staff, and then on the cover of was it Vanity Fair? She seems to have split that in two and be crossing them.
Yeah.
Above her head, so
Those Vanity Fair covers were kind of shitty, weren't they?
I didn't mind the covers so much.
But they're just like, they feel like, how a lot of the Vanity Fair stuff, they feel like, if it's like the Star Wars portraits and stuff like that, they feel so just like wonderful and together. But these were so clearly just individual pictures copy and pasted together.
Yeah, and I didn't understand.
And I don't like that.
The disparity of the background. And I think, that we have seen like those Star Wars ones all sort of seamlessly together. I don't see the way you get these all together. And some of those Star Wars ones were so refreshingly kind of, I know that they've all gone through the usual touch-up sort of process, but the fact that they showed like the Laura Dern one with the backdrop in place, like they gave the sense of the studio. They didn't try to make it look like a Photoshoppy thing. You actually saw that she was standing in front of a backdrop which didn't fill the whole screen.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. Whereas then they've got all those white background pictures of all the characters, and it's a huge cast of characters, and I can understand how they didn't get all these people together in the same place at the same time. But I'm shocked that not shocked, but I'm surprised that they cropped a lot of people, because you would think that the reason to do that on the white background would be that you could put together a big collage, like a big long panoramic of everybody together, so that we could appreciate the scale.
Yeah.
And see it all come
I imagine
together.
that the original individual photos are all
They've got that.
they're all
somewhere.
complete, and they just, when they assemble the layout, they just crop some of them off. But
Well, I don't know if they were, but then if you've got that, I don't know why we haven't seen that already, like it all together, because I think that would be interesting.
It might happen later, because they did have a big photo all together. I remember a while ago they were having like a 10 years of the MCU, and they got everybody together for like a big class photo. So maybe they'll release the Photoshoppy one at the same time as they release that one. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. And it was that shoot where we got to see Hawkeye's hair, and that gave me a bit of a chuckle in the morning.
Yeah.
Thought of you instantly.
Yeah, I'd only seen the cover that he was on. I hadn't seen that picture that was actually in the magazine, and people were like, oh, fucking Hawkeye's hair, what is he doing? And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with his hair. What the fuck are you giving him shit about? And then I saw that photo.
All shaved at the sides.
All shaved at the sides. I mean, if everybody's, changing up their hairdos to disguise themselves from the bad guys, maybe that was his choice. It makes him very aerodynamic.
Look.
And I am here for his redneck garbage trash boy haircut.
The issue is that he's just a bit old for that, isn't he? I mean, that's the issue.
Well, I don't know. Renner's kept the haircut.
If the weight's
he's kept it.
That'd be okay. You go, oh yeah, that's the way he's young, he's having fun. He's, being a little garbage person. But Renner, like, we watch Renner in Wind River. Like, you don't watch Wind River and think that guy should shave for the sides of his hair. You think, oh, that's a grown-up man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't need that in his life.
No, he doesn't. It's a little bit, like, the thing that's even funnier is that it's a bit sort of textured and sort of tousled over the top, and I'm just like, no, what are you doing? But I love it. I'm good with it.
Oh, well, good for him. Anyway, I thought the trailer was fine. The thing that probably... Not disappointed. I don't want to use words like shocked and disappointed and stuff, because we're talking about a movie trailer. Was fine. It was a bit of advertising. But there aren't really any shots in it that I think are standout shots.
No.
Like iconic shots. And
Can you turn your fucking phone off?
I don't know what's happening there. I think Paris, Suzanne and Zach are having a conversation. So that's a good promo, right? For Dungeons and Dragons, number 1. Yeah, and there's not really any environments that kind of capture my imagination. It's all stuff we've seen before. In fact, like when you're seeing Doctor Strange's house, you're like, yeah, you could have just shot this as soon as Thor and Loki walked off it in Ragnarok. Like, I've been here.
There is so much Doctor Strange in this trailer, and that's so disappointing. Because, like, look, I'm sure there's 1 or 2 people in this world that like the MCU Doctor Strange. I'm not one of those people.
No, I don't think I am either.
I just need him to just go away a little bit and just not be in this movie as much as this trailer is suggesting that he will be.
Yeah, I think especially if this is the last stand for some of the old guard, that we really want to get to that Avengers core, don't we?
Yeah, I am very genuinely concerned for a lot of my favourite characters.
Well, that's the segue, isn't it? Because we've been talking about who do we think will survive this and who won't, who's going... Because the Vanity Fair article suggests that old guard's going to be hanging up their capes and helmets in some respect. I think Evans is fucked. I think Captain America is dead for sure.
Yeah,
Dead to rights, gone.
He's been talking about leaving for years, and if he wanted out, this is the right time. And they've got Sebastian Stan contracted for like 1,000 movies, so they'll do Bucky Cap.
Yeah, I think he's safe. I think Mackie's safe as well, and he's also another option. Does Thor wield his hammer in any of the trailer shots? He does in the Vanity Fair picture, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he still has his eye in the Vanity Fair picture too, so they're obviously just not going particularly spoilery in that one. I don't think he had the hammer in the trailer.
I feel like the loss of hammer is an opportunity for somebody else to pick up the hammer and for us to get an alternate version of Thor somewhere down the track. That said, I don't think that Chris Hemsworth really needs to go anywhere. He's still got some Thor in him, I would think.
Yeah, and he's not going to do anything else.
Yeah, in fact, I think
what else is taking up Chris Hemsworth's time?
I think if they introduced a new Thor, they'll probably do it while current Thor is still around. Renner...
He's dead.
After that hair...
100% dead.
You gotta quit then. I remember Robert Downey Jr.'s thing about quitting was like, when it becomes embarrassing...
Oh, fuck off.
Like, I've got to go before it becomes embarrassing. I think Ren is just a little bit late on that one, and it's embarrassing now, time to go.
Look, the Barton family farm is not his personal fault.
Well, Linda Cardellini, Hawkeye's wife, was in the picture. I think she's fine. I think, I know there's been talk about fridging her, but I just think we're not in a time when you can get away with fridging. I also think that's far crueler than anything we've seen in any Marvel movies. I can't see. And plus, Thanos is a big purple prick that looks like Homer Simpson. So you don't take the big purple prick from space and go, oh, we'll kill this civilian mother. Like, I think that you just don't do that. I don't think they will. I think the deaths will all be heroes sacrificing themselves. So, I reckon... God, it doesn't look good for Vision in the trailer, but surely Bettany's not coming in and then leaving so soon. He's only been in 2 other movies.
Yeah, unless he's still... Wait, is Jarvis gone? Is it all Friday now? Or is Jarvis still around?
No, I think it's all Friday.
Oh, okay.
And I reckon that Scarlet maybe will be done with these big movies, like the big group ones, but will come back if it's a Black Widow solo movie, or will come back if it's a Women of the MCU movie, which they were talking about before. Although I imagine that for the producers and things when they came up and said, why can't we have a movie which is like Black Widow, Gamora, and Nebula, and Valkyrie, and Captain Marvel, and because that's what they did. Did you read about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they wanted to do that. That they were just like their little continuity heads just went, what? How the fuck are we gonna do that? So yeah, I guess they all made up now, and maybe they just after the credits of Infinity War. They'll
all walk into the same toilet and be like, hey, do you want to form a girl gang?
And
they'll be like,
book club.
Yes.
We'll have a book club, or me, and then who knows what will happen then.
Yeah.
It gets attacked. Yeah. By a book-themed villain. And I mentioned Thanos, Homer Simpson. You've put that image in my head, making me aware that people have photoshopped Thanos to look like Homer Simpson. They've coloured him yellow and put the brown around his mouth. And now that is all I can see when I see Thanos. So, not a scary villain for me anymore.
No. He looks shitty without his little hat.
Gotta wear the helmet, dude. So, yeah. So, that's the thought. That's the feeling.
Yeah.
All right. We've got 2 movies to review. Shall we start with The Disaster Artist?
We shall.
So, we've been waiting for this for a long time.
Yes, hearing every casting announcement with absolute glee and, anticipating the trailer, and finally we have seen The Disaster Artist.
Both huge fans of Tommy Wiseau's film The Room, have seen that more than any other film in the cinema. It's a wonderful live experience. If you haven't seen it before, definitely go to a screening and go along for the ride.
One of my favourite ever movie experiences was the very first time they showed it here at Luna. I went with a friend who had never seen The Room, and that was a terrible first experience for him because you can't understand what they're saying because people are just screaming the entire time and just yelling shit out and throwing stuff, and it was just the maddest cinema experience I have ever had, and it was amazing.
And we're also both fans of Greg Sestero's book, The Disaster Artist, which is about the making of, and on an episode of the Book Was Better podcast, we did interview Greg Sestero as well.
Yep, and you called him Mark to his face about 20 times. A lot of times.
Because he embodies that character so much.
Well,
that's what I think of.
Yeah.
And we got about 30 minutes with him. It's a decent interview.
Yeah, and he's lovely. Like, he is a genuinely very lovely guy.
Yeah, and if you'd like to hear that interview, it is on YouTube, on the Fruitless Pursuits channel. So, and it's been kicking off a bit while The Disaster Artist open. So you can go and have a listen to that. But so we're very tied up in this, as I was saying. So
you're actually the one that forced The Room upon me in the first place.
Yeah. So I feel like we were always going to be a fan of this. It was just, what are they going to do? Are they going to do it justice? And it all sort of hinges really on James Franco's performance as Tommy Wiseau and his ability to capture this creature. And I feel like he did a pretty fucking good job.
Yeah, he's amazing. As I said to you after the film, like, there was a point where I just forgot it was James Franco.
Yes, he's very embedded in this. In this creature. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't the same with me for like Dave Franco and Greg Sestero. There was never that kind of giving into it there. But James Franco does the most unbelievable job. Like, the accent, the body language, just the movement, just fucking everything. Like, it's actually disturbing to think how much he must have studied Tommy to do this. And it's a very enjoyable ride because you've got, on one level, you've got all the interest of seeing how this film came together and how the relationship between Greg and Tommy began and how they went to make this film and a lot of the terrible decisions along the way. But then you also get the joy of seeing these actors who clearly have a great deal of love for this material, getting to recreate and reenact large portions of this film.
Yeah.
And there's a huge joy in that as well. So really, I've seen it twice already. There's not really a dull moment. It's just one thing after another, and I had a great time both times. Yeah,
I think for me, the best parts were getting to see them recreate the film and watching them, the direct behind the scenes stuff, filming those scenes. The start was I mean, the start is just a lot of novelty of seeing Franco as Tommy and, you know, hearing him do the laugh for the first time and all of that sort of thing. But the beginning wasn't quite as... It didn't quite have that sort of rush of joy as it did in the latter half with the actual filming.
I think it's important though, because your big question when you watch The Room is, how did this happen? And how does somebody like Greg Sestero get caught up in this? You know, you don't go just from zero to The Room. You, like, how do you normalize things enough for you to feel that this strange person, this strange thing, is actually, like, you're going to go a step further and further and further into this madness to the point where you end up with this crazy product. You know, Tommy's quite manipulative as well. Like, there's part of him that's very sort of clueless, but then he's also quite emotionally manipulative. And you can see how just that perfect and unlikely combination of their personalities and who these people were, and how it just gets snowballed into this bizarre thing. And lots of great supporting performances, both from people who are playing actors from The Room, but also behind the scenes is really great.
Yeah, I think Seth Rogen should just be in every movie just reacting to things.
Oh yeah, like I'd like to see a fan edit of lots of films, which just cuts, you know, when someone does something questionable, it just cuts to Rogan behind the scenes going, huh? Oh, okay, we're doing that now.
A special shout out to Josh Hutcherson as Denny, who was absolutely magnificent. When that casting was first announced, I know especially among my group of friends, there was dancing in the streets. We were all absolutely thrilled. We could not have thought of a better Denny, and he absolutely nails it.
And as did Zac Efron as Chris R.
Oh, yeah. Do it!
Just really good. So I guess the thing is, if you haven't been swept up by the whole Room phenomenon, then that's kind of where you got to start. You could watch this without seeing The Room, and there are some sort of primers to The Room included in this, which will kind of give you a taste of it. But really,
yeah, it's a movie for people who are already caught up in this. You know, like, I've seen people on the internet say, well, can you watch The Disaster Artist without watching The Room? But why would you want to?
Yeah, I think you could. And I think you would have still a really great experience. I think the problem would be that up until towards the end, and I will say they do show some actual footage from The Room at some point in this film. So you would actually get a sense of what the film really is.
Yeah.
But I think up until that point, it would be very hard for you to reconcile what Franco was doing as a real person.
Yeah,
you just wouldn't believe that the film could be as bad as they're making out. And I think when you actually get to see those sort of comparisons of this footage and the real footage, you realise that The Room's even wackier and more out there than even the film goes, I think.
And before our screening, we got to see a little clip of like Franco and Wiseau there. And if you didn't have that, then you would, again, have absolutely no reference to who or what Tommy Wiseau is.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because it sort of clarifies before we start watching that central question of is Wiseau going to approve of this film? And that little footage is basically showing you that he does. And as someone has read the book, you realise that there are things that don't appear in this film, things that about Tommy's personal life, things that have been rumoured for a while, particularly when it comes to his wealth and background, that the book is more cavalier about, and the film doesn't address those things at all. So I do believe there has been some sitting down with Tommy and really working out what are you very uncomfortable with us doing. So I can see how this would get his approval more so than the book, which would have some things that I think are kind of contentious for him or uncomfortable for him to talk about. I also think it's very interesting that, you talk about a room screening as being a participatory thing. And people throw spoons and yell out lines. Do you notice, and they must have had to have been so careful about that they didn't show any
of those
footage.
things,
Yeah,
yeah.
they didn't recreate anything that would elicit an audience response.
You never saw that picture of the spoons, ever.
Yeah, because...
And there was a scene where I felt like it should have been there. Like, there was a shot, and I'm like, oh, I think someone's standing in front of where the spoon should be. And I was quite aware of that.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting thing to have to consider, because
Yeah.
the thing is, some chuckle fuck in the audience, if they see the spoon, is
They're
going to
gonna
yell
yell
out
spoons,
spoons,
yeah.
and they'll get a laugh from the audience. But it's instantly going to detract away from the story that's being
Yeah.
told on the screen, and they have to be very careful
Yeah,
about...
there was the bit with Denny and the apple that I yelled out what I said it in my head.
Yeah, I did too.
Metaphor.
But I think that by the time that's happening, the audience has such a... Like, the real-life audience sitting in the cinema has such a clear reaction. Like, you're on a bit of a roller coaster there, and I don't think you can pause to do that by that point. I saw the movie the first time with Suzanne, Zach, and Paris, and Zach pointed out something. I'm going to be vague because obviously you don't want to be spoilery. There's not really spoilers about this film. It's the room. It's about the making of the room. He pointed out something that I thought was such a beautiful observation, and that idea that when they're watching the premiere, you have an audience in the theatre with you, and you have an audience in a theatre on the screen. And there is a moment where the reactions swap. So the audience in the real theatre, we're all laughing, while the audience on the screen are like uncomfortable and, oh, quiet and, oh, what's happening? And then when they're laughing, we actually go quiet and start to think about what's happening. And I just thought, oh, what a wonderful, skillful bit of manipulation there. That, two parallel audiences, and we switch emotions with the way that this thing has been handled.
Yeah, and it's funny, the film actually made me feel quite sorry for Tommy in a way that I've never felt before. There's a bit where they're talking on the rooftop and he's talking about not having any friends, and I was like, fuck, does Tommy have friends? Like, does Tommy have friends?
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's awful.
He said no one's ever liked him. And,
Yeah.
But then he's such a douche as well.
Yeah, I know.
It's
And he's
such a
so cartoony that it's hard to reconcile the fact that he's an actual person.
Yeah. I think that's such a difficult question, even just in life. Like, how many people... I think everybody knows people in real life, and is probably also that person to somebody else in real life, where you think, oh God, this person's like a bit of a douche, and then you say your thing, like, you're a douche, and then they're like, oh, and I'm sad, and you made me upset, and then you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, and then you're like, I'm the douche, and you have to continually forgive somebody for their douchey behaviour. But then when you're a douche, you think, oh my God, like, I'm the worst person, no one will ever like me again. But then you're like, I'm forgiving people for being like a douche or putting up with them being a douche all the fucking time, so why do I feel so bad? Weird. People are strange.
Everyone's a douche.
Human behaviour.
It is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Human behaviour.
Oh, and I know this isn't a Marvel movie, but do stick around to the very end after all of the credits for some bonus stuff. We had that hot tip and got to see it, but pretty much everyone else left. So
Yeah, it was us and like two other people
Yeah.
stayed. Yeah.
So do check that out. It'll be a fun little thing that I'm sure you will want to see if you're a fan. So I loved it. I'm really looking forward to the Blu-ray release. It's something I'd like to buy. I think it would be a crazy missed opportunity to not package this with the actual film as well. And I'm hoping there's a fuck ton of additional bonus features. And I know there is, that footage that was being shot behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, that must be out there as well. In fact, I feel like Tommy's pep speech might be on the internet already.
Okay.
So if some of that stuff was on the Blu-rays and things as well,
There'd be some of that stuff that I wouldn't be surprised if Tommy's destroyed.
Or just holding ransom.
Yeah.
I want one of those Tommy's Planet pens. I'm sure if they're available, he'll be selling.
Well, his merchandise store does include Tommy Wiseau underwear, so I can imagine that Tommy Wiseau pens wouldn't be too far away.
I'm surprised he wears them, actually. Okay, so that's Disaster Artist.
Yeah.
I gave it... look, in relative scores, in terms of what I've enjoyed this year, it's right up there. It's like a 5 for me, because I love The Room. and I love the execution of this movie.
Yeah.
I just had a great time twice. So yes, it was a big one for me.
Yeah, I think I gave it a 4. It's a 4 or 4.5 in terms of enjoyment for me. Or 4.5 in terms of enjoyment. 4 I guess in terms of it's a great film, but I do think it does have to be seen in context to be truly enjoyed.
Well, my list is personal list. I'm not saying it's a 5 for everybody because it's not. If you're not as invested, and you might come out and go, "Oh, that was interesting. I had fun. It was a well-made movie." But for me, as a fan, loved it.
Yeah,
I had a great time. I can't imagine what else they could have done to make it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Make it better.
Yep.
All right, and then just like about an hour ago, we saw Goodbye Christopher Robin, a movie that could just as easily have been called "Fuck You, Christopher Robin," because things are not good for young Christopher.
No, it's a sad time. So it's about A.A. Milne. I kept thinking it was E.E. Cummings, but E.E. Cummings is the illustrator, right?
No, that's E.L. Shepherd, I want to say.
Who's E.E. Cummings then?
An author. But
anyway.
Not anything to do with these guys.
Weird. So A.A. Milne, played by lovely, sweet Prince Domhnall Gleeson, comes back from the First World War, is kind of fucked up. And
it turns out it wasn't a happy place.
No, it wasn't like super fun.
E.H. Shepherd.
Oh, E.H. Shepherd, okay. And he's married to Margot Robbie, well done him. And they have a kid called Christopher Robin.
They're immediately like, his name is Christopher Robin,
but we'll call him Billy
Moon.
Yeah, so that made a lot of sense. And one weekend when Billy Moon was about 6 or so, the unthinkable happened, and A.A. Milne was forced to look after his own child for a weekend.
Yes.
So to entertain the child, he got his friend E.H. Shepherd over, and they wrote a book about his child's teddy bear, and then they sold that story and ruined his fucking kid's life.
They
the end.
Pimped out the kid to every money-making cause possible, basically.
But then I was wondering, like, who pimped the kid out? Because he seemed to not have a lot of knowledge of what was happening with this kid. But anyway, and it's just the story of, obviously, the process behind Winnie the Pooh. Like, everybody knows Winnie the Pooh. Not everybody knows the origin of Winnie the Pooh. And it's obviously the family relationships and the effects of, I guess, fame on the family and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it, but that would probably be absolutely no surprise considering the sorts of movies that I like.
I don't know what I thought of it, to be honest.
I enjoyed how, like, I think it looked fucking beautiful. Like, every shot had this beautiful filtered fucking sunlight coming through windows and trees, and the countryside looked unbelievable, and like the little kids cute and all of that sort of thing. But I loved how, like, it's also incredibly emotionally restrained. Like, nobody reacts emotionally to absolutely anything in this film. And, like, to say it's a stiff upper lip movie, like, it's probably the stiffest upper lip movie I have ever seen.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you said that, because I think that maybe that helps me articulate a bit about how I was feeling. Because I was thinking, I don't know what kind of journey this is taking me on. I'm learning things, but I'm learning things very slowly, and the things aren't surprising me. Like, and Daddy, what shall I call the donkey? Oh, Eeyore. Yeah, okay, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. But I was like, you're not really eliciting any emotion from me. Like, you're not making me... Like, I don't know what you're trying to get me to feel. And I was like, if you're not trying to get me to feel something, whether it's sadness or excitement or curiosity or whatever, then am I better off reading a Wikipedia entry? Like, what are you trying to get from me? It tightens the grip more towards the end, and then I go, okay, now I sort of get why you're telling this story. But it was a pretty mild journey to get there for me. And really, it's the strength of the leads, because you do have two interesting actors in Domhnall and Margot. So that was kind of cool. Both playing absolute nightmare people. Like, if you think that there's going to be, this is a guy that I don't think says a sentence to his kid until his kid's about 6, and then plays for him for about 5 days, writes the book, and then ignores him again. And they're just the most, like, upper crust tuxedo wearing gadabout towns that say things like tinkety tonk when they raise a glass. And and Margot is just being a wretch of a woman.
Yes. But yeah, I actually did think there was a point towards the end where I thought they were actually going to change the story, and I was like, what the fuck is happening here? But no, it does stay true to form, and I don't know. Like, this is it. It is a mild movie. Like, this isn't a crazy, over the top story. But my God, the woman next to me was fucking crying for about that last 20 minutes, and a lot of those old biddies in that cinema all came out crying.
We were in a cinema of about 30 people, and their combined age would have been about 1 million.
Yeah, it was very elderly. Like, I'm sure there was someone just standing outside the doors with a defib, just in case.
The youngest by about 80
well,
years.
I'm younger than you, so you weren't the youngest.
I mean, like, the second youngest. And and we left as the doors opened. I don't even know if they all survived the film, to be honest. I don't know if any of them were wheeled out in a bag, but it was pretty dire. I don't know. It's really middle of the road for me. I was entertained enough. I was kind of...
I think there's enough kind of... it's something I would definitely like to watch again, because I think there's other stuff kind of going on, because it's a man that's dealing with... he's dealing with a lot of PTSD stuff all the way through this film. Margot Robbie is dealing with, I guess, her own PTSD of the birth. So she's got all that stuff to sort of deal with. And, just not being emotionally open people, that they're just kind of destroying each other and destroying their kid. And I think there's so much going on in the film. And I think that Domhnall does a great job, and seeing pictures, I don't think the pictures at the end of the film weren't quite as indicative, but I have seen other pictures of A.A. Milne where they just got that look absolutely spot on.
But do you think, how familiar are you with the books?
Familiar in that I'd read them when I was a kid.
Because, like, I thought it was just a bit too twee with this idea of virtually everything they did together in the woods is a plot point from the books. And you think, I know people write from experience, but when you're writing these fantasy stories about these creatures, I don't think, you have to have pretended to walk around in the snow and following your own footprints in order to then come up with that in a story, or the balloons, or just everything was things that were going to end up in the book.
Yeah, I have. I did read the Wikipedia page a couple of months ago to sort of find out because the movie's called Goodbye Christopher Robin. I just wanted to be prepared if something hideous was going to happen to this kid. But I don't know whether they did do all that stuff together, or whether the kid kind of went out into the woods and did it all himself and then came back and told his dad. I don't know, but
I'm sure they played and they did stuff, but I just mean that the movie's showing you, like, so he would have been inspired to do the stuff about Pooh going up with the balloon because he tried to do this thing with the balloon which they all knew wouldn't work, or this bit in the snow is because they once played and everything is and then this happened and that was in the book, and then this happened and that was in the book, whereas I'm sure you wouldn't do a biopic of J.K. Rowling and go, and the chocolate frogs were in there because she was on a train and she ate a chocolate frog and then this happened. You know what I mean? It's like, I buy that after an initial premise that the author sits down and uses their imagination and writes stuff without having to see everything that happens in the book mirror in their real life. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they had established him previously as not being that kind of writer. Like maybe that's not the sort of thing that he was writing, so maybe he was leaning on the experience with the kid more.
But you've got those 2 books of poems when we were young and now we're 6. And that stuff, there's a breadth of subject matter and it's all very creative stuff. And it goes all over the place. So I don't know, like I feel like he had that in him anyway. That's another thing when they talk about the kid that has to look after his mother who was 3. The details they talk about, I know he was sort of supposedly just writing it, did not match what actually happens in that poem. I know all that shit from being a kid. So yeah, and speaking of which, I am that kid in the film. That's exactly how I looked at that age with that haircut and everything. I don't know if I wore smocks. I think I wore painting smocks. So yeah, I was a bit weirded out by that. This kid with the page boy haircut and the black eyes and the turned up nose and the round face. And I was like, fuck, this is a bit close to home. So that was interesting. I wonder if maybe to spice it up a bit, they could have mixed this movie with that other Domhnall Gleeson movie we saw.
No.
Where he had his gruff out.
And, the gruff down low.
Yeah. Yeah. Where he could have been like, I'm going to put my tongue in Kanga's pouch so long it'll pickle.
Oh. Do not ruin how beautiful and charming this film was with your what was that movie even called?
Crash Pad.
Crash Pad, yes.
Yeah.
Don't taint this wonderful movie with that crash pad dirtiness.
I think we saw his taint.
Saw James Franco's taint in the Disaster Artist.
When we give out the best taint of 2018,
I think he's got it locked down.
Awards, I think Franco might get that one.
Yeah.
It was a fine taint.
you taint find better around here.
No, look, if it taint broken.
Oh, God.
So there you go. Now look, we're at a crossroads here because that was an hour.
Okay.
And Vikings came back. We watched Vikings. You've also been watching holiday movies. But I will say it's just a little, we don't have a lot next week.
Yeah. I was just thinking that perhaps we will do a large Christmas movie dump review next week, perhaps, because that'll give you more of an opportunity to watch them as well.
Well, let's do that because that's a free week.
Yes.
And the week after is Star Wars, and then our lives change.
Yes.
So, God, we're so close to Star Wars. That is amazing. So, yeah, let's do that. And maybe we can, because let us know in the Facebook page if anyone watches Vikings and would like to hear some recaps. I think we'll do it whether you like it or not, but maybe we can group a bunch of episodes together and talk about it in a bunch one episode rather than spread it out too slowly. But I'm glad it's back.
Oh yeah, so am I. I missed my violent children.
Agatha.
Yeah, no, she's looking pretty good. She is top notch. She is top notch. And speaking of scumbags and scumbag haircuts, I am so into Jonathan Rhys-Meyers in this season. I'd completely he turns up at the end of last season.
He's a pretty handsome dude.
And I'd completely forgotten about him, and he turns up as a sexy bishop with the sides of his head shaved, and I'm just like, oh my God.
Well, if Renner leaves Avengers, maybe getting a bit part on Vikings would be good for him right about now.
Yeah, he'd need to learn to speak with a certain different cadence.
Oh, you could have stopped it. Learn to speak.
He's actually doing it kept the ad kept popping up during Vikings for, I think it's called Knights Fall, which is a thing about a 10-part series about the Knights Templar, which he was the executive producer on.
Right.
And so that was something I was actually quite interested to see anyway, and I think it's got fucking Carson from Downton Abbey's in it too.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah. So
star of Transformers last night.
So that'll be a fun one. I don't know what does an executive producer do? Turn up and go, that's a night? Great. I'll call it a day. I'm off for coffee.
Lends their famous name.
Yeah.
To appear on a title somewhere. Mm-hmm. There you go. So should we call it?
Let's call it.
That's a show. Thanks everybody for listening. Please go to fruitlesspursuits.com to find out everything else we're doing, including links to all the other shows, like Dungeons and Drongos, which was #1 on the Australian Other Games chart the other day, which was so cool. And you can also find our Facebook discussion page. You can discuss all this stuff that we're talking about. I just burped. And also Patreon. If you want to do something nice for us for Christmas, we won't hold that against you. Anything else I've missed? Anything we need to?
No, that's it.
Then let's raise a glass and say, tinkety tonk.
Tinkety tonk. I'd forgotten. Tinkety tonk.
Tinkety tonk.
Tinkety tonk.
Tinkety tonk.